vamos a empezar ya con el taller de formación que tenemos programado para hoy, dentro de la programación que organiza el proyecto Tech English. En este caso tenemos invitado al profesor Víctor Pavón de la Universidad de Córdoba, al que damos la bienvenida, de la Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, el profesor Víctor Pavón, es del Departamento de Lingüística de la Universidad de Córdoba, ha participado en talleres de formación de muchas universidades españolas y extranjeras que están inmersas en la implantación de enseñanzas en inglés, sobre todo en la parte de Andalucía, pero también de Madrid, de Oviedo, etcétera, y también en universidades de Portugal y de Finlandia. Y además tiene la particularidad que es el coordinador de política lingüística en la Universidad de Córdoba y que tiene a su cargo la coordinación de las titulaciones bilingües. Entonces, por ese perfil, la verdad pensamos que se adecua mucho para impartir este taller. También tiene un proyecto en el que están trabajando para buscar indicadores de calidad, centrados sobre todo en las universidades de Andalucía, pero para buscar precisamente esos indicadores de calidad relacionados con las titulaciones bilingües. Bueno, pues sin más, damos comienzo al taller, que espero que os guste mucho. Antes de empezar el taller, quería comentaros que tenemos una lista de asistencia y que tenemos preparados ya unos certificados de asistencia para todos aquellos que... Vale, muchas gracias.
Thank you. Good morning. I have to say thank you again to Kira and whole department for inviting me to be here. They asked me, I asked first, well, what would you want me to do? Do you want me to do it in English, through English, in Spanish, in my Andalusian Spanish from Córdoba? What do you want? And they said, no, English. So I will speak English with my Andalusian accent from Córdoba, but in English. As she said, my contribution to the University of Córdoba is focused on two different dimensions. One is the organization, the implementation, guidance for schools, teachers, studies, master degrees, graduate studies that they want to implement bilingual education. And also, I am responsible, I was in the past, and I'm still responsible of the training program. So we have a training program for teachers, content specialists that they wish to teach through English in now, the future, near future, far future. So these are the two domains that I normally work with. I hope that will be interesting for you. And I have to say from the very beginning that even though the name of this session is a workshop, because it is a workshop and a seminar too. I'll try to give you the floor to listen to your voices. This is what I think, Victor, this is what I do, these are the challenges, these are the initiatives and the decisions that we have taken, either groupal decisions or personal decisions in your subjects. But as I say, it will also be sort of a seminar because I want to say a lot of things. I don't know if all of them will be interesting for you, but I want to say a lot of things. Please feel free to comment, to give you your opinion, or what do you mean, Victor? How do you do that? How do you implement that? How, whatever. Anytime, any occasion. That would be great. If not, it becomes a very monologic talk, that's something that we hate, that I personally is hard to control sometimes. So it depends mostly on you. All right? Good. I asked them, and they said that the majority of you are content specialists, but there are also language specialists here. So there are also people working in the language, English language. So approximately it's 50%, right? So how many of you are content teachers, content specialists, right? So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And how many of you are language specialists, specialists of the language, right? Okay, good. And okay, don't worry. Okay, approximately the same. This is perfect for me because my idea, I told Kira, I think I did tell you, please correct me if I forgot, is that one of the key factors for success in implementing bilingual education is the collaboration between content specialists and language specialists. what is the nature of the collaboration and the initiatives that are being taken to implement that collaboration is part of the, as I said, the success of what you want to do. I'm not saying that you content specialists cannot do it on your own. Of course you can. See, this is something you're very good that you are. I'm absolutely certain about that. But the thing is, could it be better? Or could it be doing something a little bit different? Or what if our students are losing track, they are falling behind when I'm going very fast, for example, explaining agriculture, engineering, or whatever? What happens? How can I solve that? What can I do to do that? We are here. When I say we, language specialists, we're here to help you. So this is my point. I want to give it to you straightforward so you know me now and I know you now, right? So I ask you, who are you? And now you know who I am. I am totally devoted to that idea. Collaboration is a key of success. All right? Good. So let's move on. The first thing is this. I have 3 questions. Very new, very innovative. One is why, the other one is what, and the other one is how. So you can see I'm very innovative with my questions, and I like questioning people. So the first one is why. Why do we do that? Why? So why are we making such an effort, investing so much time, emotional parts of our life, academic life, in doing this? Why? This is a problem that I think is crucial, because we will talk about that later. When we are deciding to teach through English, we can decide that through ourselves, or we can, for example, get together, like in innovative, a research group, or a teaching innovation group, whatever, or because the school, the faculty, or the whole university, they have decided that this is a good idea. Whatever is the decision, or the decision comes from, it's the same thing for everybody. We need to have very clear ideas of why we are doing that. If not, in the long term, in the medium term, we normally get tired, we lose heart, and we finally drop out. And this is a problem. This is a problem. Sustainability. This is, to me, according to my experience, which is not very long, probably the last 7 years, 6 years, working with people like you, is that I see people dropping out very often. They get tired, it is too much effort, there are no incentives, there's not a recognition, and very often is that they feel alone. It's not your case. You're together here because you don't feel alone. This is very important, not to feel alone when you're doing something. Very important, not only in terms of other content specialists, but also language specialists, as I said, getting together, talking what are you doing, observation in classes, for example. And I don't want to talk very much about that because I was advised not to talk about very organizational things, but this is something that we have very clear idea. In Córdoba and in many other universities, that they must have, for example, a program must have an observation protocol, for example, that people who have more expertise, not knowledge, expertise, they use different practices, they use different methodologies, they get together with you, you can get together in the cafeteria, or you can get together in the same classroom, and having a rubric, and saying, oh, this is what you do, this is what, talking, speaking. As you know very well, in Anglo-Saxon, British, and American universities, and all the universities, they fall under the umbrella of Anglo-Saxon universities. This is something they do very commonly. So having observation, pair tasks in the classroom with 2 or 3 specialists and so on. Good. This is the why. So do you have a clear idea of why we are doing this? Sometimes internationalization people say, yes, you have to do that. You have to do that because we need to we need more money, we need to attract students from abroad, we need to, right? Normally it is related to internationalization. I don't agree with that. Of course it is internationalization. If you are teaching through English, you have more possibilities that people are interested. They come here and learn. Beautiful. But the most important thing is to keep a balance between what you're offering and that internationalization objective, because you are agriculture, science. People, computing science may be a little bit different. In Córdoba, for example, we have veterinary, which is quite famous. I think it was the first veterinary faculty in Spain before Barcelona was second, Madrid was third. And we get a lot of people from South America. So we were not very much interested in veterinary studies in English. Why? Because there are lots, hundreds of people that want to study veterinary in Córdoba because of that. So we need to study this, we need to have a look. What do we have? What can we offer? To whom? So the university can say internationalization, good, but is it good for us? Do we need that? Do we want that? Do we want to attract students from? Okay, and money, that's true. But it's something that normally is forbidden. Sorry, forbidden, it's forgotten. There's something, it's a false friends, very famous false friends. It's forgotten in the idea of policymakers, which is that we are giving additional value to our students. It's not only for the professional market, which is obvious. Everybody needs English every day, English or any other language, but normally English. We are enhancing the professional profile, but also because, and this is now we are going into the benefits of bilingual education. Teaching through a foreign language has a lot of benefits in terms of processing of complex information, consolidation, and use of that information for practical purposes. Because the brain, some of you are specialists in cognitive development here, the brain has to make, let's say, in a very simple way, more exercise to get to know things which are complex. And that particular cognitive devices, processes, things like that, they, in the end, they make students are learning better. 2 words, learning better. And there are lots of evidence about that all over the world. In not only higher education, primary, secondary education, we have a lot of benefits. And we have to think about it too, when we are thinking about why are we doing all that. This, of course, but also because students learn better. I normally give the example of a very famous, there's a physicist. He's one of these people that normally show up in late shows in the USA. They're very popular. His name is, I forgot. This is a strange name. I think he's from Poland, original or second generation. And he says, when my students, he works at the University of UCLA, right? And he says, when my students are not understanding something, or I'm struggling to make them understand, I teach through another language. I give materials, I explain, I use visuals, diagrams, I use material through another language. A language that they may know a lot or a little bit. And that makes them be not only interested, because some of them will not be interested, but they make them think in a different way. This is something which is a very simple example, very simple idea, but it works, and it is behind all we are doing. We're not doing that for internationalization. We are doing that for making learning and teaching better. Just to mention that we have supranational initiatives. Everybody knows the very famous Erasmus Plus program. They decided that they have 6 objectives. 2 out of these objectives, if they are letters B and D, because it's that sequence. Second objective and 4 objective is that we need to foster doing these things in our universities. Not only in Spain, in France, in Germany, wherever. This is something that is not because the European Union is saying, do it, that we have to do it. It is another reason. It's another bunch of another reason, the bunch of reasons that we need to go for, to explain why. We need to explain to ourselves why are we doing all that. And then, when we are in university, like you, for example, I was asking people at the beginning of the session that what are you doing, what do you do? And then you were, for example, you were telling me about the way you were saying, I will teach through English, right? There are top-down and bottom-up initiatives. What is a top-down initiative? The university, the dean, the faculty, the department says, let's do it. But another thing is that one teacher, either in isolation or in group, they decide to teach through English. They have to be consolidated if we want to move on into, let's say, a number of years, for example, 2, 3, or even 5 years. If we have a long-term program that we want to offer after 4 years, for example, this is what we are doing in Córdoba. The new rector was elected, and he said, let's do it. Right? And the program involves 4 years. At the end of 4 years, we have settled some objectives. Let's see if we meet them or not. But we need a program. But also we need people that they decided to teach through English. Why? They're experienced in going to international conferences, in publishing through English. They're invited regularly to teach seminars everywhere. They have been living, some of you probably have been living in a foreign country for some years. So it's something that I decide to do it. So the university has to have respect for the two things. Individual initiatives that they will turn into, probably in 2 years or 4 years, into a, why not, bilingual degree, and also we need to have a plan. The university has to have a plan. I cannot say much, suggest people how to do things, but what my suggestion comes from my experience visiting universities, and all of them, when you visit one university 1 year, but when you visit them 3 years later, and they say, so my intuition was right. The university needs to have a global plan. The Universidad Politécnica needs to have a global plan. Your school needs to have a global plan with clear objectives, a long-term plan. So this is what we are doing. This is the training program. We need to train program. We need to recruit teachers. We need to ask for accreditation, linguistic accreditation. We need to ask for qualification. Are we going for quality, or are we? I'm smiling because everybody knows that 1 or 2 months ago, our very beloved Minister of Education said in 5 years, a number of studies will be taught in English in Spain. And then there were people saying, for example, I remember we were in the seminar by the CRUE, Rectors Conference or Commission or whatever can be translated into English. And people said, hey, wait. So are we going for bilingual education, or are we going for quality bilingual education, which is different? I can speak about me, can speak of me in my university. One faculty, I don't want to give you the name, right? This is no good. They decided to be bilingual. Let's go bilingual. And I said 3 years ago, and I suggested this is not a good idea. I know the teachers because some of them are, and it's not a good idea. What happened that 3 years later, students are permanently on strike because they're saying, what is this? Teachers come to me and say, they shout to my face, say, the plan is, I don't want to repeat the word. So nobody consulted me or any other person because you wanted to have a label, poster at the gate of the faculty, bilingual. But you need to think about students. We cannot sell something which is not quality. What are we doing? Just because we want to be bilingual? And this is very important. So in terms of individual subjects or in terms of a global policy, we need to have a certain indicators of quality. Basic. We're not inventing anything. We're not making up anything. Everything has already been invented somewhere. In Europe, in Finland, or in Korea, or wherever, right? Good. And now let's talk a little bit about you, right? About your voices. So we are 12 people here, right? Not counting our friends behind the camera. So we are 12 people, but if you want to participate, perfect, right? Get together in threes. Is that possible, right? Okay, is that possible? For example, I can help you, right? You three, for example, and then you can get together 3, and you 2 plus another one, or yes, please. That's right. Can you see it? That's right. Okay, perfect. And then you 3, and then you 3. Oh, 3. I don't know. You split up. You split up at your wish. Split up at your wish. So what I want you to do, you have 4 groups, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Okay. So as you can see, my mathematics are extremely poor. Enforce, please. Enforce, right? So 4. Oh, 4 groups of 3. Yes, that's right. Yes, I was right. 4 groups of 3, right? One. Give me 4, right? Benefits for university. What do you think that university, the global Polytechnic University, can benefit from implementing bilingual degrees, right? For example, that will be your task. Even if you don't like it, it's just a question of sequencing. Your group, for example, 4 challenges. So these are the challenges here, right, at the university and also at the agricultural school faculty, all right? Okay, you. And then 4 initiatives. What do you have to do? That's right. 4 initiatives that you have to do. I think the dean has to do this. In my university, and the dean has to do this. 4, right? And then you have 4 measures, practical measures, right? We split the last one into 2, right? 4 measures and you 4 practices. In my class, I think that teachers should do this, 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 and this. All right? In 5 minutes, if you want to have it in 2, it's up to you. I said 4 just in case you wanted to write 20, but if it is 1, no problem, or 2, right? No, sorry, measure. Measure is what you think you should do, or the teachers teaching through English in your classes, right? For example, something organizational or something more methodological. What if, that's right. No, sorry, measures are activities or initiatives. So you are teaching through English. So I think that it is a priority, that a priority that the teacher does this. I am a teacher and I have to do this in my class. The limits between one another, they are blurred, right? For example, so what are you more for expositive classes? Are you more for participative? Are you more for these things? How's it going? Good? 3. Oh, good. Can I say something? Your part is the easiest part. Not the easiest, but everybody has an intuition of what should be done. So things are getting more complex. We have to think about what should I do. But that's good. Perfect. Good. 4.
We have
3. Good. Wow. Fast people. You are fast learners.
I want to join this program. This much easier.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? Yes. Of course. I don't want. Yes. That's the idea, right? It's not from a policymaker point of view, your point of view, and we tell policymakers. Is everything all right?
What is the word, the English word for
incentive? Incentive. It's one of the few words that are absolutely the same from Romance languages. Incentive. Great. That's a good topic to talk about. I have a question for you. Incentive for teachers or for students? Or for both?
Both, both. We consider both.
That's right.
Consider both because recognition for students that they have.
Absolutely, that's the point. Great. Good.
Writing down words that they are new for them, technical words that they are not accustomed in Spanish, in English. Probably
That's interesting.
That's important.
That's interesting.
But for general students, even they can good English background.
Yeah. One thing is the language, another thing is the way they work in the classroom. They're not used to doing that, probably. Okay, can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention, please? Give me a second. I don't know how to use it. Kira, please. Sorry. I was telling someone at the beginning of the session that I was conducting a seminar for teachers of Siberian universities. They want to implement bilingual education through English. And I was like, can I have your attention? I said, can I have your attention? And they were looking at me like, do something different, Victor. They're not paying attention. And they gave me this. So Victor, this is what we use in Siberian universities, where you want, not for teachers, right, for students. When students are not paying attention, oh yeah, that's right. And they say, and they make it sound, and I was like, oh my God, I do that with my students, I will be crucified the following day, automatically. They will videotape, upload the video, YouTube, says, to the bonfire with Victor. That's a joke. I have a bet. Right? You want to bet, you like betting, you like to know betting, good. So free coffee for everyone, I pay, free coffee for everyone if everything that you're about to say will not be included in my presentation. If there is something that you have said that is not included in my presentation, I will pay coffee not only for that person, for everyone. But if everything you have said, you're going to say is incidentally or directly mentioned in my presentation, you pay a number of coffees for me, right? So you accept it? Accept it? Good, perfect. So what are your thoughts about benefits for the university?
Well, we first thought to have to recruit more students.
More students? Beautiful.
The income of the university.
That's right. Getting more finance.
That's the main. And then, of course, to increase the chances for the mobility of
That's
staff.
right. Mobility students, internationalization, and for teachers maybe too, right? For teachers, right? For everybody. Perfect. Anything? Yes. Sorry.
And then to increase the international prestige of the university.
That's right. That's right.
And there's a lot of things behind that.
Of course, of course. Some of you said, "Hey, Victor, I would have loved to talk about that topic, another topic that was given," but that was coincidental, right? Everybody can talk about everything, right? For example, this is interesting because especially people in the internationalization area, I have problems to say that in Spanish too, right? Internationalization area, they say we need to increase the prestige of the university. But in my university, for example, I will speak bad things only about my university. In my university, people say we need to increase the number of mobility exchanges for students or for teachers. This is the only thing that they think, that they think that it is good to do that, to increase the prestige of the university. But what about, for example, the quality of international publications? As you know very well, it is far more important. You can say, we have 1,000 students in mobility program. But the university who's good international is university who's having either researchers publishing in international top international journals and projects, research projects and innovation projects. These are the universities that are ranked top, not the one who has a number of students doing mobility programs, which is interesting. But this is something that has to be said to the internationalization people that only think about numbers, right? That's my point. What do you think? Yeah?
Yeah, that's
perfect.
course, one, and the fourth is consequences, networking, and networking with more networking or collaboration.
Yeah, but mobility students sometimes, or very often, to my view, is not related to, increase of international publications. But anyway, that's the point. That's the point, right? Yes.
Also about mobility of staff.
That's right, teachers, absolutely.
This case is a contribution from more
yes.
research and collaboration.
Everybody agrees with that, right? More or less.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with you that if you don't do this with high quality, all the benefits will go the other way around. And then if the students they are coming, that the students are, I think they are the principals, so they will do all the networking for you when they are back into the institution, right? And if you offer a fake, they will, they will be a really bad ambassadors for you, and then all your your plan.
Of course, they will say, that's right, it's mouth to mouth, the very famous word to word. It's the same expression, right? It's the same. But I have a question for you. I mean, it's not only for you that are working on the first, but for everybody. Who are your students competing with? I mean, for example, imagine that you're running bilingual study, and you are running the same bilingual study in another university. In English, right? But, not bilingual, non-bilingual, in Spanish. Your students will compete with these students. And they will not compete in terms of, I can speak English. No, they will be very good at doing what they have to do. They will have to be very good at agricultural engineering, not in English, in agricultural engineering. This is something that I advocate for the collaboration, as I said, and as I will say later, content teachers, content specialists, and language specialists. But the principle to me is simple. Meaning first, language second. Because we cannot let people go out to labor market with a poorer training in agricultural engineering just because it is in English. If we do it correctly, that will be the same or even better. But we cannot sacrifice the English thing just because it's in English. They have to compete with these people. They will get a job competing with these people. And this is something we cannot forget. That's why it is absolutely essential to have quality programs. The definition of quality program is difficult, right? But that's what we're talking about. That's why we're here. Okay, sorry. What do you think? Yours was challenges.
4 challenges, yes. We look at it from the point of our mission here. We're linguists, so really the 4 challenges can be summarized into just one, offering support to the content teachers in their teaching experience.
That's right.
And that includes 4 different sub-challenges. One would be how to organize the collaboration between the 2 teams of content teachers and English specialists. How to keep these collaborations going, which is also another problem we have to face probably in the future. And how to maintain these collaborations.
All right. So are you saying, you 4, right? Are you saying that one of the key issues here is to build up a nice collaboration between content teachers and language teachers?
Yes, definitely.
I agree with that. We'll speak about it later. Well, now, but with detail later. Absolutely. Because it all depends on the nature of the program. This is something that we haven't talked about. When we talk about the what are we doing? There are different models. And different models that have to fit and meet the characteristics of your students and the teachers. So that's why this is so important in this country, not so important in other countries. I will offer you examples that I have witnessed myself, I've seen with my eyes, right? Okay, perfect, good. Yes, please.
We have been identifying initiatives that our university should do about this.
For example?
The first one is, you just mentioned it, to elaborate a plan for the I mean, to make all this teaching English inside a plan, not individually each one, whatever he or she wants. So to elaborate a plan which embraces everything. Inside that plan, that would be, should be something like this. First, a training program for the teachers, and giving some incentives to the teachers. I mean, so we want to do it, just not because our personal feelings, but because the university gives us some incentive. The university also should provide money, funds to this plan, this program, for instance, for training program or whatever any other initiative. And also we identify the need for a recognition for the students going through studies through this in English or whatever language. For instance, it would be some label in the title or whatever. Or any other kind of incentives also to the students. We haven't identified what could be these incentives for the students, but some kind of incentives for them also.
Right.
That's all.
Good. What do you think? Do you agree with that? That's essential. Essential. I was not invited here to bother you with initiatives and organizations, but this is essential. I was talking to Kira and Georgina at the beginning of the session today in her office, and I will send you the plan that we have, which is very similar to, because I didn't invent anything, so the plan that is normally used by the majority of universities in Europe. And so that you can, that one of the parts of the plan is incentives. We have incentives for teachers, incentives for students. Incentive for teachers, for recognition for teachers, teaching load recognition. Every credit taught through English counts as 1 credit, 0.5 is regular. They have priorities for mobility exchange programs for staff. And they have smaller groups. Because what we do is that we have a big group and then 2 small groups. So 1 small group. Because we need to count, we will talk about it later, that a bilingual program is 50%. I'm not talking about programs taught in English. Bilingual means 50%, right? 50% of the credits. So like teaching credits and also mobility credits by students. And there are incentives for students too. Recognition, the title, right? And many other things. So they're absolutely essential for the program.
I have a question about this particular measure of the 1 credit counting as 1.5. And in this university, this idea, I think that some places is taking, they are using this measure, not in other schools. But my question is this measure need all along the program, the long-term program, or just at the beginning to...
No, it's the long-term.
The teachers to participate in it?
It's the long-term. It's the long-term, always. At the beginning and always. The thing is that it has to be provided by the university, not by schools. If you do it internally in schools, that will create a lot of tension with other schools. Either you're backed, supported by the rectorate, or you're lost. In 1 year or 2, you're lost. You'll have a lot of problems. I have seen that. In Extremadura, for example, they have a degree which is certificated as the first public state university degree in education. And they're not running it. They're not going for that because the rectorate is not giving incentive for teachers. And it's very difficult to have a verification by the Ministry of Education. But so either you're backed by the ministry, sorry, by the director in this case, or you have a lot of problems in the near future. Medium, long term.
The question is, at the beginning, I find very natural to give this incentive to the teachers, like 1 credit, they 1.5, because otherwise no one wants to do this effort of preparing the subjects and everything in English. But once this is established, so in the long term, if I have my subject, 2 or 3 subjects in English, I have taught them many times, so maybe in the long term, it's no different for me to to teach the same subject in Spanish or in English. So why should I be rewarded by doing it in English when it is not an extra effort for me?
I mean, personally, I mean, this is a personal case. I mean, personally,
I want to say this is just because we are here or wanting to do it in English, but maybe some other teachers outside here could argue this to us.
Yes, but in general terms, when you are preparing, when you are teaching through a foreign language, it is more demanding. It is more demanding for the creation of materials, even if you have already created everything. Evaluation processes, assessment procedures in the classroom, it is more demanding. It is more demanding, and that's why one of the incentives that we think, probably you're right, no, you're right, you're definitely right. At the beginning is more valuable, having those incentives, but I think that those incentives must be, consolidated a long time.
Well, I think it depends. If you think the university as a company and then you are increasing the income of the company, then you have to be, in a way, remunerated for that. It's in credits, but definitely you have to do. It's my opinion, because otherwise.
I find it very natural, but I have heard some answers like this, so I want to bring here this kind of arguments to find answers to these arguments. So when other people tell me these arguments, I can reply. I find reasonable.
Wow. So, all right.
Or the other way around. Why should I teach in English? Why should I do the effort of teaching in English?
The point is, after 5 or 6 years teaching in English, it is not an extra effort for you.
Yes, it is.
The thing is, do you remember, I think this is the third or the fourth slide. The first slide was a big why. We have to have clear ideas. What are we doing? What do we want to do? All right, so this is the first step. Once we cover that step, we can move on to find responses, answers for how to do that. And what? The model first, right? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so that's giving time for the rest of the people to participate. Yes, please.
So we have forcing the students to participate. So our 4 points are all that. So the first one is to increase the student participation in class by making them working in small groups.
That's right.
Okay. Forcing them to give oral presentations in English, to make a glossary of the subject, and finally for the students to come to the teacher's office in small groups. Having this once for a couple of hours.
Good. Glossaries, smaller groups, group work, fostering participation and interaction. Good, excellent. Good. Do you agree with that? Basically, yes, right? Let's see. Let's see if we have something about that later. Let's see, right? Finally, oh, sorry. You want to add anything? Okay, perfect. Yes, please.
It's kind of difficult to differentiate between measure and practice.
That's right. That's yes. Yeah. That's why my first intention was to put them together, but I decided to split, right? But anyway, it's something new. Perfect. We are all ears.
To be more precise, focused in the talk, not like when you are teaching in your language, in Spanish or whatever, you are talking in a more general way, not focusing too much. Maybe focusing is make things easier for the student and also for you.
For the teachers. The essentials. Maybe the essentials. This is a very interesting idea. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry. So that was very interesting because when we are planning to teach through a foreign language, we have to do other things. And it takes more time. It takes more time. Even if you think, no, I do the same. Your students will not take the same way. They will not take it the same way. So it involves more time. So it involves more time. It is like you're signing a contract. This happens in primary, secondary, higher education level, postgraduate level, master's degree level. You sign a contract, an invisible contract saying, I will have to cut off to reduce the number of concepts or things that I can say in a foreign language, because I cannot do everything. I cannot do the same. Only, sorry, in general terms, maybe there are cases in which you can. Perfect, congratulations. Whoa, but that's not normal. That's not very normal, right? So it means that we are intuitively, or from the very beginning, when you're planning your subject, concentrating on the essentials. You'll have to do that, and you do that. You do that. Even if you do it in Spanish, for example, for whatever reason, you are missing classes, or it's a question of time and content. And you have to keep a balance. You have to navigate these two areas, time and content.
We also we should be very careful when using words and being sure that the students from the beginning understand the general important words from the field. Because even in the case that the students are coming from bilingual schools, but general schools, they may be not knowledgeable enough about the specific, the general words from the specific field you are teaching. For instance, plants, soil sciences, or ecology, or whatever.
Right.
Certain words that are very common in the field are not very common in
That's
general.
right. Even though they have the language, that it may not be the case, which is very common, unfortunately common, that they don't have to accredit an entry level, and they should. They should. This is not transferable to all circumstances, but in Córdoba, the plan states clearly students can enroll in a bilingual degree if they can accredit a B2, entry B2. I'm not saying that it is transferable, right? It depends on, we have our plan, you will have your plan, you have your decision, right? This only concerning the academic language. But what about what you're saying? Is that the specific, vocabulary, which is something that we have to, cope with at this problem. And also the kind of, workshop or laboratory work they're not used to following. That which adds another pressure and another load, burden to the original practice of teaching through English. So there are three things here that require a different attention. And I definitely agree with that. We need to focus on that. This is what the practices of teachers and the measures and the initiatives have to cope with that problem, because this is a very important problem.
Another suggestion is to use videos, because, for instance, pronunciation is very important. Even in using common words. I am referring, as an example, the scientific names. Scientific names when pronouns in Spanish sounds completely different if you compare when pronounced in English.
Absolutely.
Sativa in English is sativa. So sativa is a different word.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
for me it's very hard to pronounce lactuca sativa.
Right.
I can't do that.
So
I need a video. So
good.
Somebody from another country pronouncing.
Perfect. Even if some people don't like it, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about what I have found in many universities. In some universities, is that some content specialists are reluctant. They don't like when the word methodology comes into place. Say, but this is what we are talking about. This is exactly what you're talking about. It's pedagogy. It's the pedagogy that you use in Spanish, where you have to teach something very complex. It's the same story, absolutely the same story, right? Visuals, you said visuals, right? Visuals, glossaries, pronunciation. Wow. Let's see if we will talk about that later. We have a bet. And I will have to invest a lot of money. Let's see, right? Good. I think that maybe it took us 40 minutes, but I think it was worthwhile. It was worth revising, and this is where we are now. This is where we are now, right? So let's move on. Do you want to add anything else, especially the people that they came a little bit later? Do you want to add anything or no? Good. Now let's talk about what. What are we doing? What is bilingual education? Teaching through English. What the hell? Sorry. What is that? Can you delete that part, please? You got beep. When I say that, sorry. What? We have there are many different models, but we have two. EMI is English medium instruction. And the second one is the very famous CLIL, Content and Language Integrated Learning. This is what people do all over Europe in primary and secondary education, which is called in higher education ICLHA, Integration of Content and Language in Higher Education. Two different models. Both have different branches, but they are totally different. What is EMI? EMI is English medium instruction. My level of English is very good. I have a C1 or plus as a teacher, and my students have a C1 too. I teach through English. This is possible when both competencies meet. Teachers and students have a very high competence in the language. We just teach, we just do the same. You probably mentioned this. You will just do the same. I teach in Spanish and I will teach in English. My students have no problem. I'm very sorry to say that it happens very infrequently in the Spanish university. Maybe in your case, maybe in some of your cases, but this is not very common. Not only in Spain, all over Europe. All over Europe. Many people talk about Finland. Finland is great. In primary is great. At the university, they are very good at doing that because they are already bilingual. They have bilingual programs in Swedish and Finnish. They are bilingual in Swedish and Finnish. They're not bilingual in English. And now they're thinking about implementing studies through English. But the students have such a high level, and the teachers are so competent that what they do is EMI. English medium instruction. This is what they do. It's teaching through English. No more. So monoliteracy, everything in English. Normally they are also called immersion programs. They're immersion. Everything in English, 100% in English, right? Monoliteracy, one language, all English, allowed in class, all English. Normally they hire native teachers or teachers with a C1 or C2. And this is what we do, is this master's degree or this degree in English. Over. And of course, as I said, we have to overcome L1 as soon as possible. No L1 allowed in the classroom. On the other hand, we go for bilingual studies. So this is proper for bilingual studies, 50%, right? 50%, maybe 50% of the credits or 50% of not subjects in terms of credits, but also the credits in the same subject. Why not, for example, having expository classes in Spanish and having laboratory work in English, tutorials, office hours in English, because in the end we have to sum up, we have to add up all the credits, all the number of hours in English. If we have 50% at the end, after counting, we have a bilingual degree. And this is important, especially in case 1A, countries, universities, I want to respect the mother tongue. Case B, or sometimes they go together. Universities, countries, they say, I don't want to sacrifice learning engineering or agriculture of my students just because it is in English, because they have to compete. One reason or the other, they are two different models, and they're not the same. And I'm very sorry to say, I have visited quite a large number of places, and sometimes it is a bit confusing for policymakers, not for teachers. That there are policymakers that, oh, it's not the same. No, it's not the same. Absolutely, it's not the same. And we have to have different attitudes and different. What I'm not going to talk about EMI today. We could, but I'm not going to talk about EMI. I'm going to talk about integration of content and language in higher education. What can we do? This is what we are doing. This is what I'm talking about, and the suggestions or recommendations in order to do it properly properly is a vague, subjective word. Adequately, whatever you want to call that, right? When people say CLIL, many people say, I don't like it. I have to confess, I don't like when people say CLIL in higher education. I don't like it. Why? Because CLIL demands the integration of content and language, demands that there's a subject of English embedded in the curriculum. So you teach your subjects, and the subject of English is taught as one of the subjects, so you have connection. This is an ideal situation, but for example in Córdoba, in my university, the subjects about English, the very famous ESP, English for Specific Purposes, or EA, English for Academic Purposes, EAP, they were totally swept away. They're no longer in the curriculum. So if you have them, perfect, right? You can say we do CLIL, but CLIL requires the language, subject of the English language together with teaching, techniques of growing, whatever, okay? CLIL is content and language integrated learning. This is a teaching through a foreign language, right? But paying attention not only to the content, but also paying attention to the language. So we teach geography in English because students are learning geography, but at the same time they're learning English. So we are increasing the level of English. It is very common in primary and secondary education, and that's why people are increasingly talking about it for higher education. Yes, please.
So that answers my first question, because even though I am an expert in teaching my subject in English, I will do always the extra effort of not only teaching my subject, but also improving the level of English of my students.
Good.
That is the extra effort to be recognized with 1.5 credits.
What can I say? Yes? Yeah. So you think, you think this is an answer for your question?
One answer.
Perfect. So I'm investing my money, right, in that. So I'm happy to hear that, right? The thing is that at the beginning, 20 years ago, they started to talk about it in Europe. Now, the last Eurydice in 2012, they have transformed. They have transformed the definition. Why? Because they are now leaving the door open for higher education too. Look at this. Now it's a general term to designate different types of bilingual immersive education. Teaching subjects through a foreign language. So now we can say that CLIL is open for. That's why we created, or people created this acronym, Integration of Content and Language in Higher Education. Needless to mention that this presentation is available for you. I will, it is there, the computer. I will send it to you, and I will send it to anybody who desires. I mean, this is simple. I will give you my email address at the end. So Victor, send me the presentation. You don't need to say, Victor, remember me. I was the one who said, Victor, send me the presentation. Thank you. Well, thank you is not obligatory, right? But it's nice. All right. So, in my view, if we want to do that, we need to cover one, cooperation between teacher department, teacher collaboration. You were mentioning that in your voices, right? Language teachers leading the plan, the role of language centers. When I say leading the plan, I'm not saying that leading, I'm saying helping you, for example, to work on pronunciation, to work on use of lexical practice. This is what I'm talking about, leading. And the role of language centers. This is something which is, I think, a bit, if not totally, unexplored in the Spanish university. So all the universities have language centers and language departments. And we don't exploit them. We say, so you can teach in English, do it. So I think that collaboration is at the base, if we can say that, of that particular, if we want to get success. And finally, beyond it, so I'm very sorry for that happens when you use a Mac and you have to, sorry. I know it sounds like an excuse, but it's true, right? Pedagogical guidance and assistance. Now the taboo word, pedagogical guidance, right? What does it mean? I'm not saying pedagogical because you are very good teachers, top qualified teachers. I'm saying using the language in a strategic way. So you are very good. We are very good teaching Spanish. I think I'm not good, but I'm average in teaching Spanish. But teaching in English is different. We were talking about that this morning. One of my subjects in my faculty is pronunciation of English, phonetics and phonology. We have to cover a number of dull things, serious, not nice things. For example, the articulatory mechanism. So when I teach that, I have to use a lot of extra things. Use that visuals, group work, I have to do other things because if not, my students would get lost. Just change that by, I don't know, thermodynamics, soil types, whatever, right? So it's the same story. So this is what I'm talking about. In English is more difficult. Normally is more difficult. So that's why in my modest opinion, the word pedagogical or methodological has something to offer here, right? Because it's what you do. Yes, please.
I don't agree with that.
Good.
In the way that and we have this discussion in one of the seminars, because I think it's the same also in Spanish. When I do
This is what I said.
Yeah, when I do my lecture in Spanish, I try to do the same as in the pedagogical way that I will try to do in English, right? Because the methodology is the same, in my opinion.
So I'll try to reverse your comment. So you're saying that you're pedagogical when you teach through English?
I mean, yeah, the approach.
That's right.
The approach of the knowledge has to be the same.
But I think
in my opinion,
it is. I think I said that. I think because it is a little bit more difficult in English. That's why we need to use the same or be higher or wider or a different range of activities because we need to bridge the gap of comprehension. For example, let me just use your example. Said my students don't understand something sometimes. So a pedagogical approach means that we need to take care, for example, of pronouncing key words because key words are related to key concepts. Key concepts are related to the ideas that you want to teach to your students. If they don't understand one particular key word in your exposition, they will completely switch off. They on off. They switch off. They will not follow you. It is. Yes, I agree with you. It's the same in Spanish.
In my course, it has to be the same.
The same.
Both approaches are the same.
Right. But okay. So I will try to modify my point. So transfer your. I think I said that you're top qualified methodological people. So transfer that into English. But you know that you'll have to be a little bit more. Not pedagogical because you are already pedagogical, but you need to carry out one or half additional activity because they need it. Because if you just transmit, if you just say something to your students, they will probably not understand. This is what I mean by pedagogical. Even though it's a word which it's a taboo, I don't know why it's a taboo word. A little bit taboo, right? But it doesn't have to. The same, absolutely the same. Right? Sorry?
No, the word is not politically correct.
No, but it's nice, not politically correct. Yes. I am a philologist, but I don't work in education. It's literally. I don't work for the Faculty of Education. My department is the Department of Philology. But I think whatever you come from, what we do is to use our resources, knowledge, techniques and practices to make students understand, process, store, consolidate and use, apply in the future. This is called pedagogy, right? So
yeah, but the thing is that the message that you have to, or at least I think that you have to transfer is that the students know that you have in the theater are completely different but all around Europe or all around the world. Because of the communication era. So the way that you have to transfer your knowledge is completely different. It doesn't matter if it's in Spanish, in Chinese, or in English.
So you mean the same?
That's the message, you know.
But you mean
but the message that I'm getting from at least from the these sections that we have right now is that, hey, come on, you have to switch and you have to do a different approach of the teaching process, because this is English and the Spanish is Spanish. So I don't think so. You know.
Well, but you know what? I completely disagree with you now.
Why?
Let's talk about it later, right?
Okay.
You have a beautiful, not beautiful because they're intrinsically beautiful because they're controversial,
Okay.
but interesting and useful,
Extra
right?
coffee.
Prepare for your car. Oh, yes, if I'm still thinking about, probably I will need a lot of money. I don't know if I have to have a look at my wallet. Let's see later, right? Okay, resources. Hey, I know this sounds totally pedantic on my side. I know it. I am not a pedantic person, but I am sounding totally pedantic. But this is something that we edited. It's a 42-page document. What to do in an international university. It's not only for Spain, it's international, right? It's a PDF document, right? If you want to get it, ask for it. So you can download it from the internet, right? But it's something that this is for policymakers, right? And this one is what we found in our university. This is local. Our university may be similar to your university, right? And what are the challenges that we found in our university, just in case, right? So end of the pedantic dimension of the, right? Now let's talk about the how. Now I am really, risking my money. This is the parts of the presentation that I will say, ooh, Victor, you didn't mention that. I remember you said, good, let's see, beginning, how? How do I do it? In the classroom. What do I do in the classroom, right? Unfortunately, we have only 45 minutes to go, but this is why I was supposed to be invited here to talk about this. But I'm asking for your indulgence if it took me too long to talk about the preliminary ideas that I think they should be talked about. All right? Are you indulgent people? You look like. Good. I like this guy. So especially for people in education, people say, Victor, are you still speaking of Prussian? I say, yeah. So, but he's very old. So, yeah, yes, but it is totally connected to what we are going to talk about. When you talk about crushing in the world of education, they think of you, they think of me, that you, Victor, you have no idea. Crushing, come on, 70s, woo. These hypotheses that he exposed are totally connected to making the best of your language when teaching your content, right? Comprehensible input. The students will not learn if they are understanding. Simple. Wow. Is he famous for that? Yes. But this is very obvious, right? Second, message versus form. This is the real debatable area in bilingual education. What is more important? Meaning is more important to tell them what they need to be told, or to tell them in an accurate, correct way in terms of language. How can we manage? How do we manage these two areas? This is the difficult area. I said that at the beginning. A content specialist is clear, meaning first, language second. But not leaving language aside. Get language with you. If language is not used accurately, students will not understand. You said that, not me. And I agree with you totally, right? But if the language is not correct, they will not understand. Right? But this is the debate. Do we have to be very linguistic? No. And that's why I said that's why collaboration with language teachers is so important. Because they will say, if I have a look, I have a workshop about that with content teachers. I have an introductory course, and when I identify people who are a little bit against pedagogy, and say, okay, we'll have a workshop, special workshop. And we can demonstrate with language teachers very easily that we can help you do it better. We can demonstrate. I'll try to demonstrate that, not practically, theoretically, but we can demonstrate that. And now, we are not saying you have to learn linguistics, not at all. All we are saying is 1, 2, 3 ideas that will help you use your language more effectively. Finally, is meaningful communication, obviously, and the affective filter. Coincidentally, some of you were saying at the beginning, you know, I speak English, but someone we met in the stairs, but I don't feel comfortable. So this is one of the key issues here too. If students are not comfortable, motivated, if they are comfortable is the word, in your classes, no teaching, nothing you can do, you can be the best pedagogical teacher in the world, in Spanish or English. If you are not interested in what you're doing, nothing. There's a very famous linguist, probably you have heard of him, I don't know, I mean content specialist. His name is Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is one of the most famous linguists, I think it's the most cited linguist in history. And he said he didn't write about education, nothing, but he just said one thing. I quote literally because I remember, even if I am an old man, I don't remember things, but I remember that because I cite him very often. He said, 90% of effectiveness in teaching depends on your students are interested in what they're learning. It's something so obvious, but this is crucial. He explained that the low affective filter, they are interested, they're motivated, they have a low filter, so it's like a vicious for the positive circle. But on the contrary, if they feel happy, not motivated, not interested, bored, so high affective filter, they're not learning. All right, let's talk about the problems. These are the problems that students normally report. This is not my intuition, this is not the intuition of teachers, it is based on research. Students say, you know, in this case, teachers say that when we make, you mentioned that, when we make mistakes, so it's difficult comprehension, obviously. If the level is not, they don't have a minimal level, so teachers say that, teachers report that, right? Teachers report, teachers and students report that accuracy is terribly important, to use the language correctly. Sometimes teachers, because of their accent, they speak very fast because they want to cover all the contents, and it is unfortunately very often halting the capacity of students to understand everything you say. Fluency, which is the other way around. So fluency is the capacity to say what you want to say without stopping. Fluency is not speaking fast. This is very common confusion, right? Fluency is speaking slow, but without stops, without rephrasing, without going back, so saying what you want to say at the speed that you want to say it. Right? The language of class management. Class management is do this, do that, this is what we're going to do, we have to, so it's not explaining, it's making people, you know, sit down in different positions, for example. This is very important. One of the key books, one of the most successful books ever written in teaching subjects through English in primary and secondary education, they have a glossary at the end of the book of these sentences. That's how to say, for example, to hand off. What is the meaning of the difference between hand out, hand over, hand in, things like that, stupid things like that. What is the, as you know very well, in English and in Spanish, if you fail at explaining the activity to your students, the activity goes down, down. So that's why it's so important to use the language accurately, especially when explaining what they have to do. And I think that you mentioned that too. It's the lack of specific subject technical vocabulary, that we have to work harder and more consistently because they have a problem. And also they have a problem of recognition and production because it is very, when they read it, they understand, but when it's pronounced, they don't understand because it's pronounced completely different, right? I have general pedagogical recommendations, Spanish, English, Swedish, Swahili, whatever, the English that you can, so the language that you can use. One is the subject dictates, the language demands. It's not the same teaching geography than teaching philosophy. It's not the same. It's not the same than teaching, for example, or doing laboratory work. Subjects that they're more eager to be taught. So they're sorry. You're eager to when you teach them, you do hands-on. I mean, performing, making, experimenting. So the language is totally different. It's easier. Not only because they do what you're doing, sorry, they see what you're doing, it's also because the structure of the language is easier. But if it requires explaining processes, events, experiments, results, causes, that becomes more difficult. So it requires a different attention to the language. Second, more strategies. We need more strategies. I'm very sorry if you will get totally upset with me at the end of the session because you said that, because you also said that, right? So it's visual things, right? Or strategies in general. And finally, using the mother tongue. Ooh, this is another debatable area in teaching through English. What? Victor, say that again? Using Spanish? Isn't it bilingual? Isn't it through English? Yes. We will go into that later if we have time. I think we will, because there are 2 or 3, no ideas that I want to give you, but 2 or 3 ideas that I would like you to discuss and reflect on the use of the mother tongue in the bilingual classroom. These are, to me, 3 very general things that you probably take for granted. I take them for granted too. Now, what is academic function? This is linguistics? No, it is not linguistics. It is teaching through English. So when we say, I told you at the beginning, in the middle of the presentation, we need to make use of a strategic use of the language. We need to be effective. We need to be effective. We need to make them understand. So this is what Bloom was in a very famous taxonomy you probably have seen everywhere. So we need to give students knowledge, understanding, the application of that knowledge, the capacity to analyze, the capacity to synthesize, and we need to assess that they're learning. Right? So this is something that all teachers do in Spanish or in English. Right? In this particular pyramid, what we have that we can be helped by language teachers is especially in understanding, not in knowledge, obviously, we're not a specialist, and in the use of the language for analysis and synthesis. Because the students need to synthesize from a lot of details that you're giving and say, oh, this is what I need. You mentioned that too? Essentials, you call that. Essentials. Now, one thing is the academic functions, another thing is the academic language. When we were having that sort of preliminary discussion in the, in the English, no, discussion is not the Spanish, right? In the English term, which is just talking about something. It is a bit different depending on the subject, but it is different. When we use the language for an academic purpose, it's totally different when we use the language for another type of text or whatever we want to call that. So we have to separate 2 areas of academic language. One is vocabulary and the other one is syntax. Isn't it the same? It's not the same. It's not the same. So we have academic vocabulary is critical. Somebody said that. I don't want to point at anybody. Somebody said vocabulary is essential. It's essential for the understanding. So we need to tackle vocabulary correctly. One stupid anecdotal example, not in your area, is about primary education. When you do training for primary education teachers in bilingual schools, they say, you know, Victor, I don't feel, because probably the level is not very high, say, but what I do, probably you will say that this is stupid. They say to me, I quote, more or less literally, they say, probably you will say that this is stupid. But what I do is I use a glossary. And some of my colleagues say they disregard that using glossaries. And I say, perfect. This is what you can do, perfect. Using glossaries is essential. Words, notions, concepts are essential for the understanding what you're saying. So that's why using glossaries is at the very top low level of strategies is the most important thing that you can do. And then we have the academic discourse. which is different. I'll let you know later why and how to tackle this and why is it different. The academic language, the use of syntax, the capacity to say something comprehensible. If your students, I mean, either because you evaluate or because you practice in the classroom with written products, they have to write, perfect. But if they have to speak, you'll have to take that into consideration because it's more difficult to speak academic discourse than write academic discourse. So you have, for example, something very important like not only the academic functions, but also, for example, discourse markers. When I say now discourse marker, and you get like, Victor, I thought you were nice, I don't think you're nice anymore. Discourse markers, this is linguistics, what are you talking about? Sorry, what are you talking about? I'm giving you the name, forget about the name. Discourse markers is you are saying a narration, you need to coordinate your ideas. If you are telling a report, or your students or you have to report correctly. You have to enumerate, you have to, you know what I'm talking about? The use of adverbials, prepositions, constructions. This is important because if not, your students don't know what you're talking about. The student will get lost. If you're not connecting time, coordination, and meaning, that's why we need, I think, it's not that you need help. I think that what you're doing, which is superb, could be even more superb with the help of language specialists. Right? And another ugly term, text genres, or the pronunciation of this word is fantastic. Genres is one of the few words in English. It is pronounced with ja at the beginning of the word. Genres. There are two words, genre and gigolo. I don't see the connection, that's ours. So, genre, okay? We have expository, argumentative, instructional, and narrative. These are basically the 4 text types that you will have to use. And my suggestion is very simple. I don't want to bother you with linguistics. What I'm saying is that think about your activities in terms of, if I am doing expository, this is the material that I'm using. If I want them to say, I want to hear their opinion about anything, these are the materials that I will be using, the practices that I will be using. If I'm, making them how to do something, and now if I ask them to narrate, right? So simple. Is this of use for content specialists? I think so, a little bit. I think so, it depends on you, right? Because it helps you in some, at the end, we want students to use the language correctly. And all I'm suggesting is, if you want to make your students use the language correctly, is to use the language correctly when they write and when they speak, right? But also, why not paying attention in a balanced way to the different products? You want them to narrate, you want them to argument, you want them to instruct or repeat instructions, perform instructions, or expose, say something. We have to, the language is different. Discourse markers are different. Pronunciation of words is different too. The lexicon is different. Pronunciation goes hand in hand. Let's talk about what we use in class. One word of warning. When we say texts, it happened to me when I was young, a long time ago. So text, we think about written text. Text may be written or oral. We call them, in linguistics, in language, we call them text, right? With this, what we do. So these are the texts, you tell me. If there's something that you have never used in this text, you tell me. For example, what is that? It's expository structures, facile arguments, blah, blah, blah. Text structures rather than narrative literary nonfiction. This is what you do. You don't do fiction in your classes. What is the function of those texts? To describe, to sequence, time order, to compare and contrast, cause and effect, problem solution. Or I will reverse the question. Is this what you do in your classes? I mean, when you are explaining, when you're asking them to do something, you explain about sequences, you compare, you explain causes and effects, you explain problems and solutions or not, or am I inventing this? Do you do that when you explain? Yes, right? Perfect. So, and these are a very tiny summary of the things that we do when we do, that we carry out informative text, informational. Essays, speeches, opinion pieces, journalism, historical, scientific, and other documents for a broader audience. Obviously, it is scientific documents for a broader audience. So this is what we do in the classroom. This is informative on my part. I'm not helping you, all I'm helping you is to reflect on what you're doing, no more. It's not helping you to do better what you do, right? This is important too. In my opinion, it is important. How to make students sit down, let's say simply, sit down in the classroom. It is interesting. So a teacher, you have to interpret what you see in your students. What about the linguistic competence? Are they good? Do they follow you? Do they get bored? Do they get bored or you're explaining? So we have to interpret that. This is exactly what we do when we teach in Spanish, exactly. And then, do we find disruptive behavior in the classroom? Anecdote. One philosophy teacher from the education faculty came to me in a seminar that we were holding in Córdoba, and he said to me, I have 100 students and 15 students sit front. They listen to me, they pay attention, and the rest sit back. They don't listen to me, they don't pay attention, they shout, what should I do? And I said, I think to myself, come on, I will not save your life. You want me to save your life? First, if you had told me, why are you teaching philosophy? He was a teacher of philosophy. First year with the students with a B1 or minus B1. Philosophy requires rhetoric, requires, not only because of the complexity of the notions, but requires the use of the language. So what do you expect? This is what you had. Why? So the person that was behind your plan should have told you, not philosophy. Or philosophy if it is the third or fourth course of philosophy when students have at least a B2. Just change that into your subject. If it is complex, if the subject requires a lot of performing, manipulation of the language, if the students don't have a level, you will have disruptive behavior. Disruptive is just not behaving in an educated way. And these are the three things that, as somebody mentioned, I don't remember now, honestly. So we should be flexible, because sometimes we just make students listen. Students just listen in your classes, perfect. But sometimes they are listening for a purpose. This is what's called technically focused position. So they are listening for a purpose on a particular activity, and then group work. So at least this is the minimal, this is like the minimal thing that experts say that you should be flexible for with managing the students. When you're doing one thing, they sit down one way, they do one thing, they do another thing. And something very, very common, pedagogical common, right? Which is, we need to create different paths of learning. In colloquial terms, is making students do different things in the classroom. So they have to do different activities that probably in Spanish you should do just one or two. Now you have to use 3 or 4, simply. Now let's talk about these suggestions that I promised at the beginning of the how. Suggestions. Do you think, well now I'm addressing a direct question for you. Do you think that we should change a little bit our behavior as teachers? From what you said, I inferred that probably your idea is not so much, or not at all, or not so much. What do you think? Do you think that you should behave differently when teaching through English? It means you're not sure, you don't know. right?
Actually, yes, because the English level for students is different than the Spanish level.
Sorry, I was taking my time when you were speaking. Yeah, of course, absolutely. We don't have homogeneous classes. So we don't have homogeneous classes. We have one option. If we don't have homogeneous classes, we teach. You don't understand, your problem. Or we do something to take with you and not leaving them behind you a little bit. If we are that sort of teachers that we are, I guess, so it's something that we have to do different things. A new teacher, yeah. From interaction to learner-centered. I'm very sorry, yes, I know that it's too pedagogical term. Learner-centered interaction is interaction, making students participate more. The more students participate, the same as if you were teaching in Spanish, the better for understanding. It is a direct cause-effect principle. More interaction, better learning. It's the same, with the addition that now we have to bridge the gap of comprehension. Okay, so what teachers should do, or what teachers should be doing in a way, is illustrate, demonstrate, develop, explain, organize, interpret, perform, produce, solve, underline, compare, and use mental maps. I left that one, mental maps, and graphic organizers are essential when teaching in English, because it's not because they cannot follow you, it is because it is more demanding on the part of students, and they switch off more common. Even here, for example, so we go to international conferences, or we go to seminars, or this guy from Cordoba coming to bother you, these things. Sometimes we switch off. We reconnect later, maybe, but that's normal because it's more difficult. Listening to a person speaking in another language is more difficult, and it is difficult for us. It's more difficult for students, so we have to be careful. With students, we ask them to do most of the things are the same, but especially we ask them to order, interpret, categorize, for example. To apply different categories to something that you are giving to them, or summarize, or generalize, and hands-on. And this is particularly something that I have the opportunity to witness myself this morning with your laboratories. So people do a lot of hands-on practice. So these, if you have that opportunity, if you are in teaching through English, if you are just doing a little bit of your subject, some of the credits of your subject, probably this is the best area to start with hands-on activities. And now something, we were talking about that at the beginning of the session. Students are lost at the beginning. So prior knowledge is basic here. We need to connect with familiar knowledge. Either students are familiarized, they're familiarized for whatever reason. I'm talking about the beginning of your lessons, but in the middle of your lessons, they will be familiarized because you are explaining things. Connect. We connect as we do in Spanish, because I do that in Spanish, but I don't teach Spanish very often, but I do that. At the end of the session, the summary at the end of the session, asking them, let's say, I don't like the word homework, but preparatory activities, so that they look for information that will be used the following day, or will be, valuable for them to understand what I have to teach the following day. Connecting lessons, making knowledge, new knowledge, not be completely new, but based on knowledge that has been worked with by students in the previous days or whatever. And something I know that it slows down the velocity of the class, but overviewing at the beginning, what we do in Spanish too, is absolutely essential here, because it's not only the content that we need to warm up, we need to make them tune in with the use of the language. Students, this is something that happens, that by personal experience too. We are speaking in Spanish with our colleagues, we are speaking in Spanish, they are speaking in Spanish in the cafeteria, on the bus, wherever, and suddenly they sit down, they still speak Spanish, they say, hey, ¿qué va a hacer, tío? And then a person, very serious person, says, now we're going to talk about, and it's dramatic. The effect on the capacity of attention is dramatic. So that's why at the beginning of reviewing is obligatory, absolutely obligatory. Not because of the content, because of the language. You are shifting from one language to another dramatically. So they require 5-10 minutes of, right, both things. Maximize redundancy. Visual aids, of course. PowerPoint presentations, YouTube videos, visual aids. If you are good at drawing, draw. So I smile because I'm very poor at drawing. And sometimes when I have to explain co-articulation between one sound in combination with another sound which merges in another sound, I say, look, this is what you do with your tongue. I say, my drawings are extremely poor, and I can hear them say, that now they understand, right? Because stupid things like that is absolutely. And another thing that we do very much in Spanish too, when something is complex, we need to not only to assess that they are understanding you, but also to keep the attention up, keep the attention going. So use encouraging questions. What is encouraging questions? An encouraging question is a question which is easy to answer. It's different to a question that I said that and said, did you understand? Or what do you think about that? But if I ask students things that I know they know, we are facilitating the process of learning through another language. Always in English as well as in Spanish, but most important in English. Always when you address directly to a student that they have to answer in English, make questions which are easy to answer. And then we'll have time to see they are responding, they are learning, but this is something, it is because of the language. It is because of the language that requires attention. And graphic organized mind maps, glossaries, sorry. Oh my goodness, good, that's right. So again, essential, absolutely. I'm going a little bit quick because I want to finish in time. I like that. If it's so obvious in Spanish too, but in English is again the language that is try to make them manipulate the meaning through the language. If you give the meaning of the language in a pack, you give it to them, they will understand, yes or no, they will process, yes or no, they will keep that knowledge. But if they are the ones who are, accessing that knowledge through the language, is obvious, so obvious. It doesn't have to be told with so emotion on my part, right? Simple. And something that it is related to the degree of familiarity is that if you are presenting a new concept, no matter how difficult and complex it might be, try to make them access the concept first. Right? For example, difficult notions, processes, experiments, try to make them access that first before giving a text or explain or use a PowerPoint or do the experiment. Because you are, once again, it is the problem with English. Once again, it's not only the understanding, it's the capacity to understand through the language that will modify if they learn it or not. And then we are activating the language. We are activating the language. And now, I have to say, I said that before because I'm one of these strange people that are very fond of English pronunciation. You know the problem with this word, right? Have you heard, do you know the story about that? This is fish. Fish. G-H like laugh or cough. O like women is E. And T-I, nation, is sh. Put them together, fish. The absurdity of English pronunciation. We have spelling one way, pronunciation another way. So there is a The writer of, normally, I'm not an expert in literature, the writer of Pygmalion, George Bernard Shaw, right? Okay. George Bernard Shaw, right? You have heard about it, right? Pygmalion, and the famous film, My Fair Lady. A florist, speaker of Cockney, getting better things in the Covent Garden, a professor of phonetics and a friend, they bet and say, I will turn her B into a person from nobility just by changing the pronunciation. And the story is true because George Bernard Shaw, who was Irish, who had a strong Irish accent, he was one of his closest friends was Janet Jones. Janet Jones was the chair, the professor of University College, the first department of phonetics of the world.
The author of the famous phonetic teacher, Jones?
Yes, right. Janet Jones was the professor, was the chair of the department. They were very good friends, and it's clear that George Bernard Shaw took, what David Jones said, or his knowledge, as the basis for Pygmalion. Well, the thing is, and he invented that, George Bernard Shaw. The thing is that pronunciation is key, is absolutely key. It doesn't matter much if you say, for example, category, which is the right pronunciation of category. It doesn't matter. It does not affect pronunciation. Or if you say accuracy or accuracy, it doesn't matter. Comfortable, comfortable, it doesn't matter. But it does matter when it totally distorts the recognition of the word. It does matter. And let me tell you something which is very basic but important too. The pronunciation of the ED, for example. Pronunciation of ED is basic. So why? Really? It is. When we say, for example, we say opened or talked, but we say offended, completed. So we have an extra syllable when the last letter is letter T or D, completed and opened, right? What if we say opened? They don't understand. I bet not a coffee, I bet a meal in the cheese to restaurants with you, if you can deny what I'm saying. Native people, when they hear someone saying, and he opened it, because the brain, the recognition of words depends on the appearance of the accented syllable and the number of syllables which are not accented around the accented syllable. Our language, Spanish, and all Romance languages, when we hear chronologically, sequentially. We hear one sound plus another sound, making up syllables, syllables make up. In the English ear is based on the recognition of the accented syllable. So if we do not pronounce the accented syllable correctly, in a new word, not in category, in a new word, and that's how, for example, the other way around, when we say open it, we say leave it, he leave it, it says, even us, we get like, whoa, what is that? Native people say, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. This is crucial. ED, past participles, passive voices. Passive voice is crucial in academic language of teachers, of engineering, of science. So that's why is absolutely, I have native teachers, when we are in a conference and we're listening to someone saying, making mistakes like that, they say, you know what I do? When I start not to understanding, I just switch off, I disconnect. And this is what students do too. So this pronunciation is essential. I know that I'm subjective, I told you, I'm a teacher of pronunciation, but it is true. And not only that, the rate of speech is absolutely essential. We have one course especially on how to use pronunciation in university lectures. How to make the best of the pronunciation. Rate of speech, you can speed up when things are not important. But when things are important, you cannot speed up. You have to slow down. You slow down, I do a slow down automatically. This is what you're doing. Even if you don't notice, you are paying more attention to me. When you slow down, people automatically pay attention. Second, use of pitch. Pitch is el tono, the pitch of the voice. If I do that, and when you hear that, then automatically your brain pays more attention to me. So that small things that can make your pronunciation much, much better understandable and comprehensible. And the other thing, I don't want to bother you with this, The other thing is obviously accuracy, we need to pronounce correctly, and this. This is, to me, this is the Trojan horse. This is in the pronunciation by university teachers. The capacity to say important ideas that are understood, that are heard and understood by people. Technically, the name is the tonic syllable. Tonic syllable is that one syllable is not only accented, but has a higher pitch in the word, which is more important in terms of meaning. So it means that if we say, for example, how many times have you been to London? I would say in Spanish people have the tendency to say, I have been there 5 times, which is a native people, 90% say, how many? Because they're not expecting you to say 5 times, they're expecting you to say 5 times. Times is already in the context, explicitly. So you don't need to repeat that. I mean, you don't need to give attention. Give attention to what's new, important information. It is something very tiny, but tremendously important in the understanding of people. Not only native speakers, but also non-native speakers. The capacity to highlight what is important. Highlight what is important and go faster and not with so much attention and accuracy to the things which are not important. Additional suggestions, reference books in second language. Not new, I know. L2 in practice and laboratory work. Oh, sorry. Right? Good. And micro-pedagogy. So again, it's not only just pedagogy, micro-pedagogy. Wow, Victor, you're so repetitive. Yes, I am. Scaffolding. Scaffolding is the capacity to make students understand what they're listening to. Right? So when we speak, we modify. When we speak Spanish, we do scaffolding too. Because we rephrase, we go back, we make examples, we compare, and through that, we make students understand. In English, the same, or even a little bit more. A little bit of history about that. So there was a guy, a Russian, the famous Vygotsky, and said that when people are in the area of proximal development, they learn better. Simple, right? But in English, it's more difficult to make students get in the area of proximal development because their level may not be high. That's why we need to do more scaffolding, more help, more help. A model of scaffolding, this is what you do, everybody does. So we have here what they can do. Right now, we give them a task, an activity to perform. We scaffold, we tell them how to do it, we help them to do it, and finally, they can do it. It's simple, right? It's the same model. Are we saying something different that you don't do you teach through Spanish? No, it's the same. It's basically the same, right? And now, just think about it in terms of this is what I do or this is what I don't do. I never do that, Victor. I will never do that in my life. I don't like it, whatever. So modeling. So when a student, you are explaining a difficult concept to a student, you model. I mean, so you have to give them examples of the language. Right? Now I'm talking specifically about the use of the language. If you are, for example, stupid example, the parts of a volcano, for example, of the eye, they're very difficult. The retina, the iris, and so on. The eye, not the volcano, right? So, will students, maybe your students are not grasping the meaning, they're not understanding. Why? Because the concept is difficult or because the language is not accessible. We have to be careful with that because probably is not the concept. If they can understand that in Spanish, the acid test here is when they can understand something in Spanish, they don't need language scaffolds, they don't need help with the language. But if they cannot understand in Spanish, we need to do other things to make them understand in English. That's why language specialists are necessary. We know where, we know what. You know too, right? But sometimes there will be 1 or 2 cases that you don't know, and we can help you. We can help you with that. Bridging, for example, learning new things that based, but when we bridge, we make them understand by using one particular instruction, kind of English, whatever. Contextualizing, this is something that we do too. right? And finally, representing, that we make them, ask them to transform a given text, normally written, to transform. This is what simply we call it in your own words, explaining your own words, right? Things like that. These were approximately the 4 dimensions that we normally cover when we do scaffolding. We scaffold with vocabulary. I'm sorry, I need to go fast, right? Because now, sorry. Definitions, second, or just comparing, giving synonyms, use of synonyms, very simple, right? Simple. You don't need our help as language teachers to do that. This is probably you do that when you feel that your students are not learning what you're saying. And now this is the final thing I wanted to talk. This is another controversial, highly controversial thing. I told you, mother tongue. Should we allow the mother tongue when we teach English, yes or not? I will give you my answer. My answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely. The problem is how do you use the mother tongue? This is the problem. But let me contextualize. Who are the people who know more about bilingual education in the world? The Canadians. The Canadians, they started in the 70s, the 60s, the end of 60s. And now, for example, if you go to Southern California or Arizona, or there are lots of immigration from Mexico, speakers of Spanish, they know everything about bilingualism. They know everything. And they have something which is called transitional bilingualism. They take students, the majority of them speak Spanish. If you know that very well. If you go to the United States, you have to speak English if you want to stay in the country. This is a monolingual country. But they are flexible too. They say, okay, transitionally, we allow the Spanish language. And students, sorry, teachers in these areas are already bilingual because they don't say, no, English, you don't know English, I'm sorry, you fail. You fail and you fail. No, no. They allow. So if in real bilingual, my question is, my idea is simple. If in real bilingual context, they allow for the use of the mother tongue, even though if it's transitional, why not? Why don't we do that? Transitionally too, until your students get a higher knowledge, and you don't need to use the mother tongue. It's the same. If they do it, are we more Catholic than the Pope? Yes. Are we more Muslim than Osama bin Laden? Yes. We are more. So if they are doing it in real bilingual context, why don't we do it? We have to be flexible too. This is my point. The problem is, I will use a negative example. The problem is that I teach bilingual education. I teach agriculture, engineering in English, and I always give my students a summary in Spanish or whatever. So your students will be waiting for you to speak Spanish to understand. So this is a wrong use of the mother tongue. This is not the use of the mother tongue I am suggesting. Experts, not me. I work in a medium-sized university in the south of Spain. We could have micro-alternation, we could have macro-alternation, we could have meso-alternation, or we have translanguaging. Wow, forget about the terminology. I need to show off that you invite me, just show off there, I know that. Now, seriously, if the level, in simple terms, micro-alternation, if the level is high, we just do code switching. Code switching is a cambio de código. And then students will follow you. Oh, good, perfect. Right? I have been observing bilingual classes in higher education. I remember a class, it was in the Netherlands, a class about the Treaty of Yalta. Wow, Second World War, Stalin, Roosevelt, Churchill deciding what to do with Europe at the end of Second World War. And the teacher she had such a high level. The student had such a high level. Everything, the class was conducted in English. What happened? That the vocabulary was so technical, the concepts. When the students said, what is that? The teacher said that in Dutch. This is using the mother tongue. Is low-level bilingualism? No. If you leave that person without knowing or 2 students, what happens? They're lost. They switch off. You have 2 students less in your class that day. So why not this is called switching? This it may happen in your classes. Or, for example, what may happen is that what we do is this is bilingual education. 50% we have Spanish and English, right, along the curriculum. Or if we do it, this is method alternation. If we do it in the lesson, for example, so we encourage code switching, right, in different activities, so that we take for granted that students are learning. Look, what I'm saying now and what I'm about to say in a second, I don't know how to say that. I know that I'm being criticized. I am criticized by language teachers by saying this, and by many content teachers, because they say, what is that bilingual that you're proposing? And again, I think that a teacher of agriculture engineering is responsible for teaching agriculture engineering, not English. So, are we sacrificing the language a little bit? Yes, we have to, because we cannot say you have the language. That's why it's so important that the students enroll with a minimal high level, and then we are now automatically we are in position number 1, micro alternation, sometimes here and there. But now let's go to the other extreme, translanguaging. You know, this is like the Zumo's old cousin that I need to refer to Ofelia Garcia. Ofelia Garcia, she's a professor, she's the chair at the University of New York, Faculty of Education. She wrote one of the best books about bilingual education that I've read in my life. Maybe that you're experts. Carmen is here, she's an expert in bilingual education too. Maybe she would not agree with me, but I think she's one of the best books, an overview. Bilingual Education in the 21st Century is the name of the book. And she says, look, translanguaging, translanguaging is I teach in English and I allow my students to respond in Spanish. And many people say, Victor, to the cross, we'll crucify you tomorrow, to the bonfire. This is another way of, I'm not saying all the class, I'm not saying all the class, I'm saying different activities. If what I'm interested to know that the student did understand what I said, why not one particular tiny activity or 2 activities in the classroom, we will allow people to respond in Spanish. And then I don't have to exaggerate. People want to crucify me for that. This is low-level bilingualism. This is low-level now, but investment for medium level tomorrow and high level in 2 years. Easy, flexible, simple.
I did that with my students. I taught some English in another university, and I taught them that the language should not be a problem, and if they have any question, they could do it in Spanish. So I did that.
Good. All right, I'll have a question for you. When you are in an international conference and you have presented, but the international conference has been held in Spain, in your university, what happens? Do all the questions the people are addressing are in English? No. Does it matter? No. Because the purpose of the activity is that I presented something innovative, I researched, I think about it, I don't care about it. In that particular situation, the discussion is conducted in English or in Spanish. The important is the discussion. Just translate. This is difficult. How to do that is difficult. It's very personal. It depends on you and your students. But it is possible, absolutely. Absolutely. And advisable, in my opinion. Which is strongly criticized by other colleagues, which think that I am promoting low-level bilingualism. Do you have the possibilities to co-teach? Do you have language specialists that they will be willing, for example, to teach with you one day? And you, provided the roles are determined very clearly at the beginning, these are the activities we will do, I will do that and you will do that. We will divide students into different groups, I teach this and you teach that, and then we change. There are lots, there's a variety, this is an art. Co-teaching is an art. Everything has been said about it. Right? but we can use language specialists for that. Why not? Or just the problem with native speakers that just did speak. They're like robots. A native speaker speak English, right? But language specialists, the language, my English is no good. It's not as good as a native speaker, but I know more about the use of language than a native speaker. I'm sorry, unless the native speaker is qualified in languages. And now the last but not least section is a very naive help of how to structure a lesson if you are teaching in English. Very simple, it's just a transference from the world of English as a foreign language, in ESP or EAA. Right? Always try to do pre, while, post activities, and for example, this is a list of suggestions how to do the first part, how to introduce the topic. Right? Remember that all you need to do is to ask for a presentation, and I will send the presentation with pleasure. I will be delighted if you ask me for a presentation. Don't feel obliged to ask for it, but I will be delighted, right? Or for example, the while activity where you are asking them to do something, right? So outline, define, make notes, compare, match. So you make them get together, group work, interaction, and finally the post activities, right? And this is this distillation of all the maybe boring or half interesting things that I have said today to you. First, how to make how to do it a little bit better. Well, better maybe it's a little pretentious. How to do it differently, right? Always warm up and make students tune in to the topic because of the language, because of the topic and the language too. They need warming up with the language. It's too much. Try to give them one particular concept, notion, keyword, and try to make them, for example, brainstorming how much, the very famous, how much do you know about it? That you can do in presence, in the class, before, the day before, things like that. Presentation of the topic, we discuss about some of the topic, what do you think, what are we covering, will we cover changes, challenges, differences, whatever. This is very important. This is something that if I were to give you a linguistic recommendation, suggestion, my suggestion, don't forget that. Try to find the correct pronunciation of the words which will be important or pronounced more than 5 times in your presentation, because they're essential. They are the door of entrance to understanding. If you fail at pronouncing them correctly, they will not understand. It's stupid, but it's really important at the same time. It's difficult when you are speaking in English that students are taking notes, they're taking down notes. It's more difficult than in Spanish. So you need to be more slower, speak slower, you need more revisiting the same idea, so that you need to give them more time if you want them to take down notes, more time. And normally when you, it's rather than asking orally, is always good. It demands a lot of preparation, I know, but it's good always to have something at the end of class, normally at the end of the class, that you are testing that your students are understanding, right? But if you ask them, because you want to evaluate that what you said has been understood, don't forget something very important. There are questions for general comprehension and for specific comprehension. And this is something that we language teachers, we help you with that because we know of the importance of this. Normally, people in general, not only content specialists, people in general, did you understand that? And we asked. There are 2 kinds of understanding when people are listening. One is for specific information and for general information. And the stupid example I always give is when you are in an airport and they give you the name of the gate, they are, for example, delaying the flight. This is specific, and your ear has to be accustomed to work with that. And another thing is that when you're at the desk and you're having a problem with your passport or whatever, and you need to understand what the person is saying to you in English. Totally different. In academic English, in informational text, oral text, is exactly the same. You have to practice with one and the other, and always ask them for responding one and the other. And they use multiple open questions, whatever. Okay? But always ask them general things and specific things. And they are exercising the capacity to understand. And the final one, the post-tax, reusing material. Reusing material is that, hey, I've used that text, do you have to read it again? Not for the same purpose. If the text, for example, was an introduction to something, and you approach the text for general information, use the text, for example, for, I don't know, for pronunciation, or for comparing with other notions, but use the same text. When people, this is something that this is the theory of dual attention. When you are listening or reading something for the first time, you want to understand everything. And when it's in English, you need to understand the way this is expressed. But when something has been understood previously, the brain unconsciously pays attention to the language that is being used to express the content. So anytime that you are using another same text for a second time, your students unconsciously will be learning the language, or will be focusing on the language, which is good. Because one of the objectives of all this is to make people use the language better and better. So there will be less translanguaging and less code switching. And that's it. I'm very sorry, we started a little bit late, right? So I think I was really meeting the 2-hour seminar, right? Objective. All right, so you have we will be very glad if you want to say something, ask something. I have a question for you, but I don't want to ask first. Do you have questions? I have a question. Questions or comments or criticisms or, yes?
Just a remark. What do you do with code switching in a multicultural classroom where you can't resort to Spanish?
What I think about code switching?
Yes, in a multicultural classroom. I mean, with Erasmus students.
From the point of view of content, it's good, provided you either, at least they have to have a certain mastery of the language of instruction. Right? If you have a certain mastery, if you know a little bit about the other languages present, perfect. But if you have, for example, students from Kazakhstan, I'm talking about my own experience, Poland. In my class of pronunciation, we have Kazakhstan, Poland, France, this year, German. So for them, code switching is not possible. I don't speak Kazakh, I don't speak Polish, I speak French. So in this case, it's absolutely invalid in their mother tongue. But we can use code switching in a tongue that they are mastering, for example, which in the majority of the cases is Spanish too, because they're here, they're learning Spanish. You know, students, in my case, students come to me and they say, because I always, can I say that in Spanish? I address directly to Erasmus students and they say, oh yeah, because we are learning Spanish too. But obviously, the benefit of code switching with multicultural classes is absolutely reduced, of course. More questions? What's a question? Good. That's interesting.
To what extent is important to have the library contents updated? I mean, the central library, not the department library. Because we don't have money to buy books in Spanish, so to change everything into English is almost impossible.
Yes, what can I say? You're right. But we need money. Somebody said, I think it was your colleague that he left. He said that we need a budget. Your group, you need a budget. You need money to be invested in many things, training program you mentioned, but also, for example, to buy reference books and material in English. But now, well, it depends on the level we are talking about. But now, if you use that very often, we use a Google Advanced search, and you say, I want a PowerPoint presentation. I'm saying something which it did happen to me, anecdotically. I was teaching a group of agricultural teachers, and there was a professor, a professor, British name, a catedrático. And I will say, you can find everything nowadays. And he said to me, Victor, he's afraid. Victor, I have a question. I want to find a PowerPoint presentation about, and he told me something totally ununderstandable for me. And there was a guy, there will always be a crazy person somewhere in the world that has uploaded a PowerPoint presentation about that specific thing that you're looking for. There are lots of materials and just use the advanced search by Google. Additional to what you're saying, obviously, budget to spend on course books and textbooks. More questions? My question is, do I have to pay you a coffee? Obligatorily? Because was there something that I was missing from what you said at the beginning? Seriously? Aha, I see doubts in your eyebrows. Maybe, all right, okay, I will be very happy to pay for a coffee for all of you. Right, okay, thank you for your patience and good luck. You know, this is where I am, and well, Kira knows me, and I will be very happy to help you in whatever area related to this, obviously. Okay, good luck. Thank you. Thank you.